Hello. Hello, and welcome to an online presentation from Biometric Update. We discuss the hot topics in biometrics and digital identity. I'm your host and the managing editor of Biometric Update, Chris Burt. Today, we're going to talk about the 2025 Face Liveness Market Report and Buyer's Guide from Goode Intelligence and Biometric Update. And who better to discuss it with than Alan Goode, CEO and Chief Analyst with Goode Intelligence and co-author of the report. Good morning, Alan. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And thanks, Chris, for the introduction. And good to be here and to share the kind of research that we've collaborated on.
Absolutely. We've been looking forward to sharing this with all of you. And before we get right into telling you about the report, just would like to cover a few quick housekeeping items. All attendees, as always on these presentations, will receive an email with a link to the recording so that they can watch the video. You can watch the video on demand as you like. In this case, the email also contains a 10% discount on the report, so make sure you take advantage of that. We will take a few questions at the end, somewhere between one and a larger number, which you can submit your question for using the Q&A function near the bottom of your Zoom screen. So I'd like to begin today by telling you a little bit about what's in the report. And we start by defining our terms and setting out why we believe the growth in this market will continue to be explosive for the foreseeable future. The growth in liveness detection or presentation attack detection has been largely driven so far by financial services adoption, and that will continue with more banks, more geographies, and more different kinds of transactions subject to liveness checks to protect against fraud and to ensure that the malicious actors are not getting into the system to then cause more harm. Non-financial institutions will also continue to develop or to adopt rather liveness detection in greater numbers. We're seeing liveness attached to things like age checks in ever greater number. We're seeing liveness coming in as more popular for social media. There are regulations in the works right now which may drive further spikes in that kind of adoption. Personhood is becoming a more commonly used term. We're seeing that in a number of different areas. That's an area where liveness can help. Public services, public service delivery is going online and going digital, as I'm sure most or all of you on the call are well aware. And some of those services involve required levels of trust that really make liveness crucial to their function. We explore these factors and more in the report. And of course, as the demand side grows, the market landscape is becoming more crowded. Fortunately, so are there are standards and testing capabilities coming online commensurate with that increase. And so that gives buyers something else that they can turn to for assurance of what the various vendors are telling them. So we delve into the standards that are associated with liveness and presentation attack detection, as well as some of the misunderstandings that go along with those standards and the testing that is based on the standards. Crucially, we cover the international standards like ISO/IEC, very well known, but there are other different and important standards like those from the FIDO Alliance that we also include and discuss in the report. We really emphasized the importance of ongoing research and testing in the report. That's part of the way we selected our pioneers, which we'll get into a little further as we go along. Some of those pioneers are involved in novel testing and research. In fact, that's a common theme throughout the report. and to get a little better understanding of how that works and what people on both the vendor side and the relying party side should watch out for, we spoke to several of the leading independent testing laboratories around the world. We spoke to iBeta, based in the United States, FIME, based in France, Ingenium, based in the UK, and Bixi Lab, based in Australia. We want to thank all 4 of those labs for participating. They really shared some good insights with us that we think will be helpful both to those developing and providing liveness detection and to those who are adopting it. We actually listed a number of other labs in the report, but we took comments from all 4 that I mentioned earlier to really put together a section on how everyone can understand the different kinds of testing available and what they should keep in mind when looking into test results. I would like to actually share a quote from one of those labs, which is not in the report, but really kind of sums up some of the insights and touches on several of the themes that were common to them. One of our labs told us organizations, this is regarding what organizations adopting liveness detection can ask to providers of liveness detection once they've sort of narrowed down their choices. And this testing provider says organizations can ask providers how to ensure the solution works properly in production and how to follow best practices, not only for the functions that can be tested in a lab, but also from an operational perspective. For example, if the personal data management process is aligned with regulatory requirements. Also, how to monitor the accuracy and continuously improve on their algorithm model, leveraging data collected in the field. What will be the risk mitigation process when incidents are encountered? These are, again, questions of liveness testing providers suggest you might ask a provider of liveness detection or pad technology. So with these important considerations in mind, I would like to call out the 20 pioneering providers who we mentioned in the report before turning the discussion over to Alan to share a little bit more about how we got there. I'm just going to run through them quickly as I've been talking now for a few minutes. But the 20 pioneers who we picked out for this version of the report are Aware, BioID, Cyberlink, Dayon, FaceTech, ID-R&D, IDEMIA, IDverse, Encode, iProve, Jumio, Mobi, Onfido, Paravision, ROC, Socure, Trinamix, Veridas, Yoti, and Uverse. Now, you may notice that some of those companies don't provide the same kind of liveness detection or don't provide it in the same way as some of the others. So it is worth considering that some will be more appropriate for your given use case and some less appropriate for your given use case, depending on their specialization and what exactly you're trying to accomplish. And I also would like to encourage everyone who buys the report to continue looking at the other providers as well. We list several others, a number of others. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very crowded marketplace. And so all of these companies that are listed in the report are active and have shown that they are working hard on this problem of how we determine that a facial image is that of the person who claims to be presenting it. So with that, Alan, I'd like to bring you in to talk a little bit more about the report and the methodology behind it.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Bear with me while I share my screen. I've got just a couple of very simple slides to go with this. Bear with me while I... There we go. Yeah, so my task as the analyst on the report was to use our research and use our network, reach out to our network to determine market activity, market adoption, and also to have a look at forecasting. And then when I go through these slides and to go through some of the key highlights of my part of the report, we'll talk a little bit about methodology and how we kind of come up with these figures and also adoption levels. So I'm going to look at market overview, trends and forecasts, and also what to look for in a face liveness provider from a buying perspective. So, a key finding from the research was the evolution of face liveness detection as a distinct application, moving away from just being a part of the biometric matching or authentication into a separate product, solving the problem of, is this a real live human being, in addition to, is this Alan Goode? In the report, we investigated key drivers for adoption, important sectors and applications for the adoption of face liveness detection, and we give adoption examples around the world. We give a few, there's a lot more, but just kind of key areas in particular sectors where face liveness detection is being used, who's using it, why they're using it, how they're using it, and who the suppliers are. We also created 3-year global forecasts for face liveness detection, for transactions, and also for revenue. We identified 4 key drivers for face liveness detection adoption, which are fraud prevention, enhancing security, removing friction, and improving accuracy. From a fraud prevention perspective, organizations are obviously facing growing levels of fraud, especially AI-driven fraud. And the use of liveness detection here is to prevent fraud attacks on biometric systems from succeeding by ensuring that the person submitting a selfie is real, physically present, and not presenting a disguise like the one here. Face liveness detection enhances this. I'm sure, hopefully, face liveness detection solutions will be able to determine that this isn't, well, it is a real person, but it is a person wearing a mask of some sort. So for enhancing security, face liveness detection enhances the security of digital interactions and transactions by detecting spoofing attempts. It adds an extra layer of protection against advanced spoofing techniques. And by removing friction, the latest face liveness detection methods, especially passive and hybrid approaches, offer a smooth and non-intrusive verification process, making liveness checks convenient for users and meeting the need for frictionless digital interactions. And improving accuracy. Liveness detection can improve the accuracy of biometric systems by differentiating between genuine and fraudulent biometric data. Key sectors. We investigated the key sectors that are driving adoption. Because face liveness detection is a key component of face biometric-driven identity verification, authentication, and insurance, the key sectors that are adopting the technology are predominantly those that are high assurance, often highly regulated. And we identified 7 key sectors that are leading the way with adoption of face liveness detection: financial services, government, enterprise, gaming and gambling. And Chris mentioned the kind of the relationship between face liveness and also kind of age verification. And obviously in the gaming and the gambling area, the adult content area, that is important as well. E-commerce and retail, healthcare, and travel, including border control. Key applications, we identified 4 key applications that face liveness detection is enabling or supporting. The 4, let me just check. Oh, I have just to go back up a bit. My apologies. Digital onboarding. Biometrics is a vital tool for remote customer onboarding for a wide range of sectors, with particular high adoption rate in financial services. Face liveness detection is a critical component for digital onboarding that prevents spoof attacks, ensuring that the applicant is a real person. Biometric authentication. Face liveness detection enhances face biometric authentication by ensuring that the presented face is a real person. So these are the key kind of applications, that the areas where liveness detection is enhancing the workflow and the process. Document authentication as well, obviously related to digital onboarding, ensuring that the government issued identity document is real, not a fake, or has been tampered with. The most common form of identity document tampering is portrait substitution, replacing the holder's image. Liveness detection can be used to verify documents during onboarding. And also account management, which I think is and what we're seeing generally in our research is that end users are beginning to understand biometrics and how to use it in a much more broader sense. So they may have started off with identity verification, but what they're doing is help with their suppliers, they're broadening the use of biometrics. And one area where we think there's going to be quite a high adoption rate is account management, which is, and I think it's an often overlooked part of cybersecurity. Ensuring that it's a real person that is requesting a password reset, which is a very critical part of cyber, or a new device setup is an important aspect of account management. Face liveness detection can be integrated into important aspects of account management where the risk of fraud is present, and we believe that this will be an important adoption area for the technology from 2025 onwards. Just a quick talk about forecasting. It's a very important part of our kind of research and analysis methodology, especially when dealing with new and emerging technology. We have an excellent track record of forecasting in emerging technology areas, including correctly predicting the growth of the mobile as the authentication device back in 2009, the emergence of mobile devices back in 2011, and the growth in digital identity in 2015. It's one of the tools that we use in predicting the degree of success of a new product or service will enjoy in the marketplace. And we take into account things as product awareness, distribution, price, fulfilling unmet needs, and competitive alternatives. We tap into our global network to validate our forecasts and ensure that they are as accurate as we can make them. For pricing, in the case of liveness detection, transaction fees, we reached out to this network to get typical or average prices and fees. There will be differences in prices between regions, sectors, and between vendors. And also there will be discounting on larger volumes. So the headline figure from the report is that we forecast that by 2027, the market for face liveness detection will exceed $252 million. So moving on to what to look for in a face liveness provider. So this is based on our research again, and typically aimed at the buyers. So these are kind of 7 key areas, criteria that we are recommending for buyers when they're looking to choose a face liveness provider. What we do is all very stress that the guide should not be used as a sole method for assessing face liveness detection solutions. And that is based on organizations' individual and specific requirements that should be included in a comprehensive assessment. And Chris alluded to that from his excellent quote from one of the testing organizations. It's a continuous part of the process for assessing the reliability and accuracy of these type of systems. So we identified 7 baseline key criteria for measuring whether face liveness detection is suitable for an organization. Cost, does it meet your budgetary expectations? Accuracy and reliability, is it certified and tested product? And also, does it go the extra mile? Do the suppliers go beyond the ISO IEC standards and FIDO certifications? And can the solution detect deep fakes and injection attacks? And what steps are being taken to detect and prevent the latest spoof attacks? Security, does the supplier have cybersecurity certifications and adhere to cybersecurity guidance? Best practice, including offering a spoof bounty program. Does it meet your specific usability requirements? The ability to fit into your UX requirements is a very important consideration when choosing a face liveness detection supplier. This includes whether a solution offers either active or passive liveness detection. And then privacy and data compliance, does it meet EU GDPR if it's applicable, and other state legislation related to the collection, storage, and use of biometric data. and integration. Check whether the solution can be easily integrated into existing systems and workflow. And I think the workflow requirements are very, very important, because as I said earlier on, biometrics is beginning to creep into other areas, other parts of the process for an organization, not just at the front door for IDV, but also for authentication, step-up verification, and account management. So can you fit it easily into your existing systems, and does it provide a smooth user experience for your customers? So that's it from just an very quick overview on kind of market adoption, and also some of the forecasts and what to look for in a face liveness provider. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Alan. And Alan just shared there some of the crossover between the analysis of the market in general and the implications for buyers, right?
Yeah.
And so I would like to invite those of you listening and watching live on the call to submit any questions or comments that you have at this time. And as you do so, I'd like to ask you, Alan, about what you found surprising as we were going through this process. I'll offer an insight that seems obvious in retrospect, but that I hadn't really fully considered at the time when talking to the testing labs, who said that that when you as a liveness provider engage with a testing lab and seek compliance test or some kind of independent evaluation from them, the process is significantly different from something like the NIST FRVT, which in the field we're familiar with as an important evaluation of facial recognition technologies, but one in which there is no major associated cost, for instance, and the preparation on their part is a little bit different. So in the FRVT, big long list, you will see, especially if you scroll right down or click over a few pages in the rankings, you'll see algorithms from developers that aren't necessarily commercially available. They may never be commercially available. And the seriousness with which they are taking the issue of face matching is maybe a little bit different. And in fact, these labs suggested it is concretely different, and that all of the liveness providers who have taken the step to engage with a test laboratory do so expecting good results. That means they're already very far through the process where they think that they can really contribute meaningfully to blocking this kind of fraud and presentation attacks. So so I'd ask for if you have anything to add or any comments on that, and what surprised you as we were going through the process.
Yeah, not so much of a surprise, but I think the overlap with I just saw a question on spoof bounty programs, and I think my background is I've done a lot of work in identity, a lot of work in PKI, but also some generic cybersecurity, information security work. I've held the role of a CISO. So what I'm finding is that identity biometrics has been a separate kind of component. Really, it's been outside, hasn't been kind of pure cyber. But what I think now, with the importance of liveness detection, is the fact that it is becoming such a critical part of the cybersecurity, of your cybersecurity hygiene, your posture, because it is, you're getting attacked, your biometric systems are getting attacked in very, very different ways: injection attacks, deepfake attacks, etc., and also ways to bypass these systems. So I think it's kind of kind of treat it, if you're a buyer, if you're kind of using this technology, treat it as part of your cybersecurity and fraud management defense. And then, I think that's a critical. And we're getting into this arms race, which is quite similar to other aspects of cybersecurity, where there's an attack, the supplier, the vendor finds a solution to deter that attack, countermeasure that. So I think that's when you're choosing or evaluating a supplier, a partner in this, I think that's a crucial part of that evaluation process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting seeing the different ways that vendors handle that that requirement that they be continuously improving and continuously upgrading their systems to deal with these evolving attacks, right? So yeah, the spoof bounty, certainly an interesting way to do that. And we're seeing, I think it's fair to say we're seeing more different kinds of novel tests. We're definitely hearing more about different kinds of self-run programs, like whether they be spoof bounties or bug bounties, these kind of things. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over the next little while as well. We have a question here about pad systems that are software based or hardware based. We included Trinamix in the report, who are doing it with hardware. Obviously, Apple uses 3D in their system, but it's a little bit different. They're not a Liveness vendor, so you can't buy their system and put it on your device. So I guess that's where my answer to that question would kind of land, is it really depends on what you're trying to do. And in most cases, I think it's fair to say that you have to choose software, right? Is that a reasonable answer, Alan?
Yeah, I think it is, and it depends. It depends where you're using it. So it depends where, for remote mobile-based solutions, it's going to be mainly software-based, because if you don't want to rely on the hardware, even though there is, we're talking about face here, but in the world of fingerprints, there is that's an important part of fingerprint algorithms now, is that embedding liveness detection within the algorithms that are supplied on the devices. So yeah, it's depending on the way you're using it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, makes sense. We've got another question here about whether the need for continuous improvement gives SaaS, so software as a service, an advantage over software embedded due to the speed of response. I'm going to suggest that you're going to need regular updates if you're not using SaaS, and that is, that's definitely a consideration. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on the advantages of SaaS, Alan?
Yeah, I think it probably is easier, because if obviously with if it's a mobile device or something, and you're relying on the owner of the operating system, Google or Apple, to update the software to improve or to provide security updates, then yeah, I think it's perhaps on a longer change cycle. But yeah, I think SaaS solutions can perhaps see the attacks more. They can collate all that data, that intelligence. And I know that some of the suppliers are developing security operation centers where they're analyzing attacks on their own systems, and getting information feeds from kind of cyber intelligence platforms as well, in terms of what the latest attacks are, to test them, and then to roll them out into production. So yeah, I think they probably do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alan, about the visibility into the attacks and the role that plays as well. We're just at the bottom of the hour, which is around when we determine we want to call things. But let's do one more question here, because there's a great one and a topic that we should touch on. Liveness checks aren't just about pad. What about injection attacks that bypass pad completely? How does liveness detection detect and prevent deepfakes and morphed images? Deepfakes and morphed images are both addressed, and so are injection attacks within the report. The detection of deepfakes and morphed images, I would say, is these are specifically topics that have been very front of mind for developers of liveness detection over the past number of years. And so it's that kind of research and testing that's reflected in, for instance, the selection of pioneers. But yeah, injection attacks, you know, are not presentation attacks. They're different, right? So yeah, well, what would you say on that topic, Alan?
Yeah, they're closely related, aren't
Yes.
they? You know, as I said, that kind of relationship between, you know, traditional biometric certification testing, as you mentioned about FRVT earlier on, versus cybersecurity measures in terms, and you know, injection attacks are, you know, kind of are I would say classified as a cyber attack, and have to have measures to counteract them. But yeah, there is a, I think there's a graying, you know, of the definitions between these traditional kind of separate kind of aspects of cyber and identity management.
Yeah, and it does seem that in sort of recognition of that a number of vendors are taking a stand. You know, injection attack is something that you use in combination with our technology, or our technology will build in this additional capability, and so maybe the liveness isn't just a pad software, but is in fact a bundle of different capabilities. Is that kind of what you're seeing in the market as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But in terms of that kind of crossover, I think, you know, if you talk about, you know, how do you know that I'm Alan Goode now? So it's a case of integrating, embedding, you know, deepfake detection, liveness detection into platforms like, you know, Zoom and Teams and other kind of you know, webinar and video conferencing solutions. So I think that's which isn't really the focus of the report. It's more on that kind of, you know, I'm onboarding, I'm transacting, I'm authenticating, I'm making a payment, I'm requesting the government to do something like request a new passport. So those use cases and applications, rather than perhaps some of the areas where, you know, deepfake detection can be extremely useful.
Absolutely. It would be interesting to see how that changes, how it evolves, and you know, whether that maybe takes a more prominent part in a subsequent version of the report a little ways down the road or something like that. But yeah, it brings up all of the kind of key themes we've been talking about in terms of ongoing research and development, and in terms of expanding adoption, certainly. So yeah, there's a lot in there. I would encourage all of you to take advantage of that 10% discount, which I mentioned is in the email that will go out to all of you who registered. So please take advantage of that 10% discount, buy the report, have a look, and reach out to us, you know, and tell us what you think. We definitely want to hear, you know, the ways in which it has been helpful to stakeholders in the identity and biometrics community, and the ways in which you know, subsequent reports can be even more helpful. So thank you. Please do use that 10% discount. Thanks to all of you watching and listening, and who submitted questions. And thank you to Alan. And we will be back on Thursday to talk about the foundations of digital government services with Entrust. So until then, stay safe and have fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.